Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You're back here with Duke Donuts and me, Fractal Mind Mike. Twitch.tv slash Duke Donuts, twitch.tv slash Fractal Mind Mike. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're doing well. G'day, Duke.
Good day.
How you going? Did you have a good little break there?
I did. I had a little bit of honey. I made some instant coffee. There wasn't regular coffee available yet.
Unfortunate.
I got some what I think is pecan pie.
I had a little bit of honey, and I grabbed myself a nice fresh cup of tea. My first tea for the evening after starting with a coffee. So, cheers.
I brought something to show you.
Oh, nice.
Because this is from my.
Oh, I gotta unflip your camera. One sec.
Yeah.
Transform. That's
what you can do.
That's beautiful. I want it.
This is my old Monkey Island copy with the VGA upgrade offer.
VGA upgrade, nice.
All the other stuff in it.
We had my copy is the Amiga copy, actually.
An ad for like a network printer dealer in the box.
It's very strange. I guess people buying IBM games might be interested in Office hardware too. Yeah. I guess, yeah.
And this too. This is an interesting thing. The original. Whoa! Does your PC have Roland sound?
No.
Send away for this disc.
Nice.
Because the original game doesn't have Roland sound.
Yeah.
An add-on.
Right. I don't remember if mine had that in it.
Upgrade.
Because mine's the Amiga version.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have a Roland upgrade.
Yeah, no.
But
and then all the discs, but the discs are almost guaranteed to be bad.
5.25-inch floppies are always nice to look at, though.
Yeah, these are trash.
Mm-hmm.
They're just junk.
It'd be nice if we had like some advanced technology for recovery of data from stuff like that.
The problem is that well, there's two problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Problem one, rust, totally destroyed. Problem two, mold. Maybe you could get at it, but they're like, how do you read it with enough fidelity to recover the data?
Yeah.
When you need to get a magnet that close to it.
Yeah. This my imaginary machine is like there's a surface that you put the disc on the surface, and then some kind of like magnetic resonance or something like that, like something can like basically X-ray the disc and read the magnetic flux from it magically at a very high resolution.
What you're talking about is essentially a grid of disc heads.
Yeah.
Microscopic sized disc heads.
Yeah.
That you can press onto the disc.
Well, I don't want to touch the disc and cause potentially damage to the disc, like...
I mean...
It may be necessary, but...
Consider the strength of the magnetic field on the disc.
You
essentially have to almost touch it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty interesting tech. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm coughing now. I just went and did everything that I was supposed to do, and now I'm coughing. Excuse me. I'll have a sip of tea.
No worries.
How's the pie?
It's delicious.
What flavor pie did you get? Is it pumpkin pie? It's that season of year.
This is pecan pie.
Pecan. Yum.
It's quite good. So you're thinking of something similar to the like optical scan of vinyl records.
Yeah, something like that, but like magnetic. So like the Razer Hydra, you've heard of the Razer Hydra, right? The Razer Hydra has like sub-micron, I believe. That's probably sub-millimeter. It can't be sub-micron. That would be ridiculous. Sub-millimeter accuracy of positional and rotational orientation of hand trackers, basically, you hold, but it's magnetically done.
Yeah. The problem is it's a signal to noise ratio problem, I believe is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you have the disc is the emanator of the magnetic field. And it's very faint.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and isolating bits on that thing is crazy. Yeah.
Right. So in order to understand where the individual components of that magnetic field are coming from, you need to be very close. Because as you move further away from the disc, the crosstalk between different parts of the disc becomes too great.
Yeah,
no matter how sensitive your instrument
I assume like there's some kind of inverse square law that comes into play as well. Like being close is just better. Yeah.
And it's I think it's part of the problem is that like this bit and this bit start to mix together when you get far enough away.
Yeah.
So you need to be right there.
Right.
That said, right, you would do less damage to the disc if it wasn't spinning and you just had a very fine, like, you know, you lay the disc down in something.
And you have like a high resolution density of points that you can read with, sandwiching the disc.
Instead of one thing that's spinning the disc around in it and moving around, you're just covering the whole thing all at once.
Yeah.
Would probably be the safest way, but
it'd be interesting to see like if there was like something powerful enough to read it, and then like, you know, then you have the data corruption and correction errors and stuff like that as well. Like, like I've read a bunch of flux images of discs that I know aren't readable by like an actual drive, and I just hope that there is a way that I can use that image data, the flux image data, to recover the lost data somehow. But so far I haven't really like delved into that at all. It's kind of like probably a retirement project. Someday in the future I might look into it.
One of the big problems is that like if there isn't a paradigm that you can use to recover data you don't know what it is, and if you already know what the data is, you don't need to recover it. Right? So say the flux is for the purposes of simplicity, right? Say you have a good bit, and then like 4 areas where the flux is just 0, right? You don't know what those 4 bits might be. And you have a however many 2 to the 4th of guessing correctly.
Right.
But because you don't know what they would be, you don't know what the correct output is, and there's no paradigm that can solve that. Even brute force would just give you 16 different bytes or whatever, right? In the end. So the problem with data recovery is if you have no information about what is correct, noise and flatline 0 are essentially the same thing.
Right.
So like you can recover stuff where it's like, okay, there's this peak and this peak, and then there's peaks here and here, but they're at 50% size. You can go, okay, I have a paradigm. I can say, all right, we just need to lower the threshold, and then now we have data.
Right.
So you can kind of tune those parameters in, but when it's like corrupted data, I think the problem is you don't have a way to determine what is correct.
Correct. Yeah. It's and like that's why I said imaginary. Like, you know, it would be nice to have a machine that could like recover this stuff, but realistically, there's a good chance you won't. I think one of the good things about data recovery though is like sometimes you have a different version of a game that's never been archived before, but you know, maybe one of the disks is partially corrupt. You get your image, and you're like, well, what file is actually corrupt here? Like, can we just recover parts or like compare it to a different version that has been archived and then, you know, rebuild it based on that? Sometimes that seems viable, but yeah.
Even if you can get the even if you can get the file tables off of a disk, but not the file data themselves, you can sometimes produce comparisons that are valuable, such as, well, this data file has the same date, but it's corrupted. Or this data file has a different date and is intact. Now you can make comparisons between the two different versions, data files of the intact files that differ between one and the other.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. This is actually a really good segue into what Macaw was pointing out earlier.
Oh, here
this
we go.
Game.
Hello. Let me just flip you again.
Tritorn Final.
Transform.
Tritorn Final.
Right, Tritorn Final. Let's talk.
The Tritorn Final is this game that I saw Macaw play years ago. This would have been like 2019.
Okay.
4 years ago. And
before I started streaming. Yeah.
And we found out some really wild stuff. So Macaw played this on disk images that have been around the internet since 2003?
Wow. Very old images.
2002?
Okay, yeah.
He played it all the way through and he finished it. He never wanted to touch it again. He hates this game.
Okay. All right.
This is the only place it shows up in the box. It's by Zinesoft.
I can't even read that, but yeah. I'll believe you.
X-A-I-N, yeah. It's like this part here. So Zinesoft has a reputation. They have a reputation for a wild workplace. Macaw can tell you better stories about it, but like the like crazy owner of the company like smashing people's heads into CRTs and stuff because they were like behind on milestone dates and stuff, and like throwing stuff around the office, temper tantrums, and rumors of Yakuza stuff. And I think the guy just like disappeared eventually. Anyway, whatever. Fast forward to 2023. I'm like, hey, actually 2020, when I first got Partner, I was like, I'm gonna secretly set a number in my head.
Okay.
Of subscribers. Now that I'm Partner, I'm gonna secretly set a number in my head of subscribers. If I hit that number, I'm gonna do some very special stream. I'm gonna stream Tritorn Final on the actual X68000, and I think I can get a copy of it. BNU sent me this. BNU sent me this because it's funny.
Yeah.
So
it's very generous. Very generous.
Yeah, BNU is one of the most generous and smartest people that I know. Like, period. Super cool dude. Honored to have BNU as a friend. So he sent me this. He said he was going to send this to me, right? And it took a long time for that to actually happen because of 2020 and
things happen.
Global shipping disruptions and that one ship that turned sideways in the canal and all kinds of other stuff. So I was like, if I hit 200 subscribers, I'm secretly making a note that if I ever hit this unreasonably high number of 200 subscribers, I'm gonna play that game, real hardware, real software. I'm gonna do my best to finish it.
Wow!
Despite the fact that like people on some internet forum said you can't finish it.
So you did it. You've done that. Does that mean you played it?
I played it. I didn't finish it.
Okay.
Because when you play it on the commercial discs, it seems like it is literally impossible to finish.
Oh, no.
It's also much more difficult than the 2003 disc image version of it.
Oh no.
In really meaningful ways. Like, not all enemies drop gold in the commercial version. Almost all enemies drop gold in the 2003 version.
I see.
It's necessary to buy a bunch of stuff from stores to progress the plot of the game. And they cost like increasing thousands of gold. And you get like a couple hundred from killing the enemies that give you gold. It also has this like insane persistent respawn system where you can't just farm the same area. You have to like actually travel a certain number of screens away from the enemy that you killed for them to come back. So you have to do these like extremely long circuits of killing enemies to farm gold, and only, out of like 15 enemies you kill, only 3 of them drop gold.
That's crazy. I actually remember seeing you play a bit of this at some point. I think you might have just been doing it for like a bit of a laugh one time, not a full playthrough.
And so it's much harder, but then some events just seem to not trigger. Like, you're supposed to rescue this girl from this prison cell, and like she just never gets kidnapped in the commercial version, but in the newer disc image version, she does. So in playing this, I discovered that like some dude in like the 80s to 90s,
somewhere between when it came out and 2003.
Yeah, somewhere between 1989 and 2003. Some dude like fixed the game and then put the disc images up on the internet.
Yeah.
And like changed the copy protection around, and like
is it possible that the 2003 version is a later retail release? Like I mean,
there's no way. There's no way this game got like a fixed patched release, because
crazy.
Zinesoft was such a disaster at that time.
I mean, that's cool that somebody actually went ahead and did that. I mean, we love seeing games
nobody knows though, right? Like, without a like in-depth analysis, we won't know what is even changed, or why, or who did it, or anything like that.
So you've dumped the discs you've got, right?
Yeah, I did Flux dumps, I did D88 dumps, I did like the whole lot.
The whole kit, yeah.
It's all up there. I sent the package to McCaw, and I was like, look, dude, you didn't play the real version of the game. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to play it again.
he's never gonna touch it again though, right?
No,
there's no chance.
Never.
Okay.
But that's the thing, is that like that's one of those cases where like it's this really weird thing where I'm lucky to have this full copy of the game on original discs, and you can see, right, like no notch.
Yeah.
So these discs work. They're in great shape, all fully dumped without any problems.
Beautiful.
You can't finish this game. This 9,800 yen, probably can't see that, but 9,800 yen game.
Oh wow!
In '89.
What's that in 9,800?
That's like $100.
Oh wow! Okay.
In '89, in 1989.
Oh my gosh. That's kind of wild, dude. So, like, I love that kind of thing though. Like when you do, like, that's a mystery, right? We have a mystery to solve now. Did one of the original developers like patch the game and release the images in 2003, or did some kid like do it like in his basement, like, or was there like actually like a patched version that was released in like a limited release that just happened to be the one that got backed up? Like, who knows?
Yeah, it's wild. And like, it's very likely that somebody who was doing the copy protection who was breaking the copy protection is the person who changed the game.
Right.
So it was some pirate somewhere who was like, I could fix this game and make it better.
Yeah, I mean that was a thing. Like on the Amiga or on DOS, you would often get like a pirated version would often come with like a trainer, or just like already like they've cracked it and patched a few things to like make it easier or whatever. Like, yeah, it's weird. It's like going back and looking through those dumps of like pirated software from the 90s and 80s. You're just like, okay, yeah, that's they went to a lot more effort than just cracking it often.
I mean, I think they still do, right?
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, there's like nowadays like that equivalent of that kind of software is maybe coming towards more cheat tools for online games, like, you know, that kind of thing. So,
but there's also like there's certainly a lot of pirate versions of games that run better than the commercial versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, patches
are more performant, less resource intensive.
Yeah.
So
that is funny when you see like, you know, a day one mod for like Morrowind or something. It's like, oh, we optimized all of the plants in the game. Like,
yeah.
now you get like an additional 15 frames per second.
Right.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
As Roboto-san says, like sometimes they'll even do stuff like they'll do like custom servers for games that have multiplayer, and it's like,
yeah.
In some cases, I'm pretty sure I've seen this. They add the ability to host your own server, your own custom servers for games that don't normally have that.
I mean, honestly, if games don't ship with that feature when it's like a really simple like shooter game, like it's pretty sad when they don't ship with that kind of feature. It's like, you don't need a server for this. It's just like one more way for this game to not live on into the future is because you're forcing us to use a hosted server. So I kind of can get behind the idea of pirated servers if it preserves the gameplay outside of the lifetime of the publisher.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like there's a lot of like in terms of preservation and in terms of preserving like the experience of a game. You know, we talked before about like playing a game the way you would have done the day that it was released, and getting the game home and opening it up and playing it like you would have. And an increasing number of games you cannot play that way.
That's true.
There's a lot of games that like you can't get a version of it that isn't patched.
Until recently, Half-Life 1 was difficult. If you didn't own an original copy, it was difficult to play as it was originally released. They've just recently patched so that you can play something closer to what it was when it originally released, which is like kind of wild.
And there's there's a lot of stuff that like there's a lot of stuff that you literally can't, right? Because they've made changes to server code in ways that are irrevocable, right? Irreversible. And you can't go play a game that has an online component as part of its central experience in anything close to what the original thing was.
Yeah.
Now, in some regards, there's stuff like MMOs where community knowledge is the progression that can't be reversed. Where like if you played EverQuest 1 in the first few weeks, that was an experience. Nobody knew what they were doing.
I was late to the party on EverQuest 1, but I did enjoy the heck out of that game.
It's one of those things where like you can't go back to a time when people didn't know what the concept of a raid was.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't go back to that state because the pervasiveness of that knowledge is now so commonplace. And it's an interesting thing. It's this sort of like it's interesting to me in this format of like things you can't have, right? I can never play EverQuest 1 like it was. I can never go back and experience what was Meridian 59 like when it was a new thing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, so, there's a lot of people reflecting these sort of comments in the chat too, which is like interesting. Like early experiences with MMOs and stuff. That yeah.
And like even if you could recreate the exact software versions and servers and whatever, like you can't reverse that like cultural knowledge progression of knowing how an MMO works.
Yeah. It's funny, someone in the chat just mentioned Star Siege Tribes, which is what came to mind for me as well. Tribes 2 seemed to be the pinnacle. There was like this pinnacle there where like when you take it to lands or you play online, you'd have a certain experience. And I don't know if that experience is something that can be reproduced these days. Like, I know there are still servers out there and people still play those games, but I don't know if it ever would be the same as it was, you know, when we played it back then when they first came out.
Yeah, I think there's also like there's something to be said for I don't know how to describe it. Like a difference in attitude maybe.
Yeah.
That like to a certain extent, the idea of being competitive outside of like a local sphere of competitiveness didn't exist as much at that time, right? Are you better than your friends? Then that's as good as you could be for a lot of games, right? For a long period of time. And then now it's like there are people so much better than you or your friends that like you have a point of comparison and you can see it very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's like also like I remember having experiences like that where it's like playing with friends on lands, like, you know, doing okay, you know, dominating occasionally and like, you know, having fun, and then like getting exposure to the broader internet of those games, like, you know, Quake 1 or Quake 3 or something like that. Those sort of experiences going from like, oh right, I'm not actually that good. Yeah. Those are some strange times.
I had an interesting experience because like for a really narrow period of time in a really narrow sub vertical, I think I did really good even online. Which was Quake 1 with the I think it was the like superpowers mod where you could like shoot a fireball or have a melee, like an automatic melee attack. Something like that. There were like, I don't know, like 9 different powers you could pick when you spawned in.
I'm not familiar with it, so
that and to a lesser degree Future versus Fantasy.
Okay.
Which was another one that I played a bunch of on Quake 1.
Yeah.
And like I was playing on a modem, so I had a disadvantage against the people who were like playing from their college dorms on a T1. Wow.
I remember the talk about T1 connections. Man, it was something. Yeah.
How fast is a T1?
No idea. No idea. It was the pinnacle of internet connectivity, though, at the time. It felt like it.
1.544 megabits per second.
Okay. Yep, that's not much. That is not much. Oh, man. I was on a 56K modem, I think, at the time when I was like, oh, I wish I had a T1. Which, to be fair, significantly more.
The problem I had was that while I had, I think, a 28.8 modem,
yeah,
I didn't have, it didn't make sense to pay for internet access from an ISP locally because my brother was going to college in the same area code, and we had a like calling plan so that we could make free calls within the area code. And so I could dial into the college and use his account to play online.
Very good.
But it was only 14.4.
But a very reliable 14.4.
Yeah. But But that was the thing, right? Is that like I'm playing Quake at 14.4, so I have this like certain amount of lag, and like it didn't have any lag reduction.
It didn't have predictive networking at all, I don't think. Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, in retrospect and looking at like how predictive stuff works now versus how Quake worked back then, I don't know why the fuck we ever moved off of it, because now we have all this like spooky stuff happening where you don't know what happened.
Yeah.
You just died and the guy who killed you is halfway across the map facing the other direction.
Yeah.
And the like replay camera shows him like shooting into a brick wall, and then you died somewhere for some reason, right?
Yeah, I've had some strange experiences with that. Yeah.
Whereas with Quake, everything was like everything with like in Quake, everything was a little bit sluggish, and you had this like it was like moving through, you know, a tub of gravy, and it was like slow, but you knew that everything that was happening was like 100% reliable.
Basically, if you were on a server that you could play on, it was gonna be okay, and you would know about it if you shouldn't be playing on it, because there'd be some guy like just like teleporting, like, you know, 3 meters at a time, or you would be like juddering around and like getting elastic banded back to where you were, and you knew.
But the thing is, right? Think of what the latency was like back then. Think of what the bandwidth was like back then. It was a tiny fraction of what we have now, and it was fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like now we have all of this bandwidth, and we've switched over to this system that just doesn't work, in my opinion.
I mean, it works pretty well. It's like it works like it doesn't work.
It works surprisingly well, but when it doesn't work, it leaves you with so many questions.
It's a solution for a problem that maybe isn't as prevalent now as it was in the 90s, which is strange. Yeah.
And it was a solution. It was a solution that like it was a solution that came out 5 to 10 years after the problem was already solved for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, like I was playing a GZ Doom multiplayer with Captain Pilcard last year. I think he's doing another one soon, or he's just done one. I don't know when his Doom multiplayer is. I may have missed it. I don't know. Anyway, because I'm in Australia and everybody else is like, you know, San Francisco or somewhere else in the USA. I had that experience of like, I'm gonna fire my plasma gun and I'll aim ahead a little bit, and it's just like nothing really happened when it was supposed to. It was very, very frustrating experience. I eventually trained myself to like shoot really stupid positions, and like I'd be holding down the trigger and running, and then suddenly a stream of bullets would just like fly out from beside me, kind of thing. Like it was really, really slow. It was a fun experience. That was a fun experience. For all the wrong reasons.
I have an idea, and we need to test this kind of thoroughly before we put it into action. It's an event that I'd like to arrange. Which is, here's the basis of it.
I'm ready.
Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Volume 1, The Fellowship of the Ring on Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which
sign me up. Sign me up.
Taken at its full length is the longest title on the Super Nintendo by far. That multiplayer. Here's my thought. We host the multiplayer server for it on a light sail instance on the US West 2 data center.
Okay.
In Hawaii.
That's probably good. That's probably good.
And it has, hold on, I have a thing here. Let me find it. Amazon region latency chart. Not, is it this? Yeah, there's the one.
All right, let's see this cloud ping grid. Oh, it opened in the wrong browser. Let me try again. There we go. Cloud ping grid. Is this the right button? There we go. That probably is a grid.
Probably hard to see on stream, but it's
Asia
region
Pacific.
to region.
Sydney.
Region to region, so you can tell relatively from data center to data center.
US.
What your latency is going to be. I think it's US West 2.
US West 2 claims Oregon here, but okay, we'll just go with it. So that would be this column, 142 ping.
That's not bad, right?
Yeah, I could, like, that's manageable.
Yeah. And again, right, it's like, I think the maximum that we saw was like 150, right? And it's the reason for it.
There's like 250s on here, 280s, 290s.
The reason that one is like particularly viable is there is a direct line from the Hawaii endpoint to the West Coast USA.
Right.
It's a West Coast USA location that has a direct line to a Hawaii endpoint where it routes then to the Australia data center.
Right.
So it's like within 150 for all of the regions that might be involved.
Another thing is just looking for Europe, equivalent latency for every player, right? If you look for equivalent latency, then you could be like, okay, EU average 3 or something might be the best one for everyone, because like it's as bad for everybody kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, it's one of those things that it's finding the lowest average, right?
Yeah.
So like some people might have it real good if they're in Hawaii, or some people might have it worse if they're in Europe, but then the people in Europe still have a manageable level. The people in Australia still have a manageable level. So that was the idea.
Yeah.
But we found that Hesh and I did a test of this where Hesh spun up a super low resource Lightsail server. Lightsail, and put the Mednafen server software on it.
Okay.
And we put it on the West Coast, and he and I played NES Guerrilla War on it. and it was fine. It was fine. Like full round trip across the country playing on Mednafen.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's proof of concept right there. So
yeah, exactly. And again, right, like there are longer distances to cover, but it's still like it's really impressive that it is possible to play emulated retro games with people basically all across the globe. And the only limiting factor is people's local network access stuff.
Yeah, it looks like Lightsail starting prices are like down at $3.50 US per month. For I mean, if you're talking about emulating like an SNES game, you're probably not needing the kind of power that a higher end instances need as well. So does make sense.
I don't think Mednafen needs the emulation power on the server side. The server is just a broker, and then there's the players themselves are providing the emulation.
Oh, well,
so the server acts as a broker between players and exchanges like a bunch of data, but it doesn't actually do anything with emulating the CPU stuff and the display stuff.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's not pricing advice that I was giving or anything. I was just reading what I saw on a web page. It might have some asterisks next to it. I don't know. It could cost you more than $3.50 per month, but for a low-end instance. But that's what it said when I read it. But yeah, I think this idea of like networking old games to play them together in a way that is like as if you're sitting next to each other, the way the game was originally designed. So like
Yeah.
I've been wanting to experiment with it for a while. People have probably already done it. Like, we could probably find some tutorials on how to do it. But like, Steam has that, like, the support for like some games you can like network play, and I believe some of them are DOSBox driven games. So like, in theory, maybe you just like modify your DOSBox configuration, play 1+4 together across the network. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing we could do. I want to experiment with that kind of thing.
I think there's a bunch of stuff that would support fake IPX routing.
Yeah.
And
but like, even games that were like, you share the keyboard and play together, right? Like Wacky Wheels, you could play that on the same keyboard. I would like to see what those experiences would turn out like, actually. Yeah.
And then I know, like, for other stuff, for a bunch of other stuff, there's like Fightcade has a lot of options for retro games you can
and I know
play
that
as if there's two people together.
There's that service Antstream as well, right? Antstream does like hosted emulation somehow. I don't know if you can multiplayer on that though.
Antstream does hosted emulation, but I don't know if they have like multi-user.
That would be pretty awesome if they do.
It would be, yeah. But yeah, that's something I think about a lot as well, because like, even like a lot of the stuff that I want to do in terms of like collaboration stuff, even if it doesn't involve two people doing something, just having like two people working on something together can be so much of a different experience in terms of, like, for example, an adventure game where you have one person is just in the driver's seat doing the stuff, and the other person is like, what if we put that thing on that thing?
Drawing maps.
Remember that thing that, you know, it's like you're sharing information, and you've got one person who's doing the thing, and you've got the other person who can be like reading chat, so that person can focus more. Or
I could use that.
Alternatively, you've got, you know, you have someone whose brain is free because their hands aren't on the keyboard and mouse to look at stuff and to think about stuff, right? And that can make a huge difference.
I mean, that's what my brother and I used to do a lot too, right? We would sit down and play different games, and like, you know, my brother would be like, oh, did you try this? And I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea, you know, that kind of thing. There was a game called Street Rods 2, I think it was.
Oh, I love Street Rods 2.
And
I love that game.
We would share the controls, because at the time we just didn't have the coordination to do like the gear changes and acceleration and use the mouse to steer it. We just hadn't picked up that coordination yet. It was a little early for that. So one of us would be like using the mouse to make sure we're staying on Mulholland Drive, and the other one would be controlling the acceleration and brakes, which is a really dumb way to do it, by the way. But we managed. That was the only way we could win against the king on Mulholland Drive.
I could never do Mulholland Drive.
It was so hard.
I always did the Aqueduct because I figured out this strategy of like riding the line and just tiny movements up and down while just accelerating to the max.
Yep. It's what you needed to do it, and like you'd like have to rebuild your engine and retune it every race and stuff. It was always a fun game, and you'd be like, what car can I buy now to upgrade? Like,
oh, I can get the Corvette. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I can get a V8 now. This is going to be awesome.
The thing is, and like, so few racing games have done this since then properly, is it was just so satisfying to like read the paper and find the deals and get the parts and like assemble all of the stuff together, right? And like right down to the way that you had to use the wrench on the bolts on the carburetor.
That was so fun. It's so dumb, but so fun. And all the little sound effects it had too. Like you get the screwdriver. I think it was a screwdriver as well. Like you press it and it makes this like squeak 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 sound as you use it.
Yep.
It's like
they nailed that, the atmosphere of the experience. They just nailed it.
Yeah.
And like so few games have done that since.
And it was one for us. It was something that we could relate to our dad with a bit, because he was into that kind of like, he was into the car scene and the motorbike scene and stuff like that. So we grew up with that atmosphere. But like having something on, like, oh, we now have access to this 486 and we have this game on it that we can, like, we loved the games, and now our dad could also enjoy that. Like, oh, you should get this car because of these reasons, and he knew what he was like. He knew the cars, so it was like, yeah, that was a fun experience to share. Really fun.
I like that. I like the devs did their homework too, because a lot of the stuff, like even down to the like parts compatibility, was relatively accurate, or accurate enough that it was impressive for a computer game.
Yeah.
Because a car guy could come in and be like, oh yeah, that car is going to be good because it's got this thing. And it's accurate that they were relatively cheap because people didn't really know how good they were.
Yeah.
They just thought it was like some like family car, but they always had this V8 in them, and the V8 did this thing. And
Refraction's mentioning a similar game called Street Legal Redline Racing, which I haven't played. Have you heard of that one?
No, I don't think I have.
It's maybe you want to check out for a modern take on the same principles.
You know, it's an interesting one, and Refraction, I think, will be interested to hear this because it's a PlayStation 2 game. Bethesda's what is it? IHRA 2. It's not the same kind of thing necessarily. It's a drag racing game.
Right.
And they let you tune every parameter of the engine. There's no like cost metagame or anything like that. But you can create an engine that's got like 4-inch cylinders and like runs on nitrous oxide, pure nitrous oxide. You can tune it to these like insane parameters, and then when you hit the gas, the engine instantly blows and it like flips the car over because it's simulating how much force it would produce. And so like the physics engine of the game can't actually handle some of the configurations. So if you tune it just right, you can get a car, you put this like big like arm on the back of the car,
right, like a big truss,
flip over,
and
you hit the gas and it just like donks the bar into the ground. Your car goes forward like 10 feet and then just like starts flipping over rapidly straight up into the air.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's the game itself is not fun to play straight.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to figure out how to like break it in the stupidest ways.
I love those like games where they have like that physics sort of simulation that's just like totally breakable, and you go from like fully simulated physics to like just ridiculous clown mechanics. Oh
man, yeah, Stunts was really good. Also I think it was called 40
Sports Racing.
40 Sports Racing.
Yeah, it's around here somewhere.
Stunts had a bug.
No, 40 Sports Driving. Sorry. I think it's 40 Sports Driving in EU and Racing in US, I think.
It's called Stunts in the US, although I don't know if it got a re-release under 40 Sports.
Yeah.
But it had a bug where if you get an Indy car or one of the two IMSA cars airborne at maximum revs, at maximum speed, it will remain at maximum speed until you hit something.
So,
no matter
airborne? What, it's just sailing.
Well, funny thing. So the way it works though is you can go off the track onto the grass and you're still going 255 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Except when you try to turn, the physics doesn't really understand. So your car goes like turns, slides for a while, and then instantly does like a 90-degree like diagonal turn in the direction you're facing.
Wow.
So it's like you know how RoboCop walks around?
Yes.
And he like turns his head and then his whole body turns a moment later.
Yep.
It's like that.
So the car's like and and then
your car's going along, your car turns, and then zooms off in that
That's
direction.
actually hilarious. I love it. Very good.
And once you once you get enough lateral momentum going from turning, sometimes it will freak out and like you'll turn, and then instead of going forward, your car will just lift up and go ass first straight into the sky.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that behavior when I've run into a barrier at like an angle on speed. It'll just sort of like the physics doesn't quite know what to do. I've seen that happen. Yeah.
And sometimes that'll happen when you're just like driving at maximum speed and try to turn. It'll be like
hilarious.
What?
I love what they did there. That's like one of those innovations on technology. It's like, well, we have flight sims that have all of these capabilities. Why don't we make other vehicle sims like cars or tanks and like it just evolved into this thing, which is like a fairly advanced for the time, like physics simulations and all this stuff going on, and like real-time polygonal rendering. Like it's actually an impressive feat, that game. I loved all like going through the different cameras as well, playing that like in the replays.
One of the interesting things with that game is like how in-depth its track management stuff was. And like it even had a thing where it would like check your track to see if it was valid.
Yeah, the track validator, which I think it was pretty easy to fool. I don't really remember though. Like, you could put track anywhere, and as long as there was a loop somewhere, then it wouldn't really matter or something like that.
Yeah, and that was it, right? Because that's how it managed the AI, and the fact that it could have AI that would make it around the whole track was really impressive, right?
Yeah,
because for some arbitrary closed loop track, they managed to navigate the AI around it. They managed to like to validate it. Like, that's some complex stuff.
Because of a couple of the comments in the chat, I'm going to grab my copy of Stunts 4D as well, so we can look at it. But I'll unplug my headphones, so I'll just have to mute myself so I can't talk back. But if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that, I'll grab this.
Oh, I love Stunts. The great thing about Stunts to me was that one of the things I really liked was that they kind of nailed this like general driving simulator. It wasn't like, because I think that was around the same time as the Papyrus indie game, or like a little bit before, where like it wasn't just one race car, right? You had access to like a dozen cars or something. There was like some, relatively crappy little hatchback. There was a Lamborghini truck for some reason. There were race cars. There were sports cars. There was like some crappy sedan. And you could race those. You could see how those cars handled on all the different types of tracks and stuff. And that's just so cool. I want more games that give me those options and not just race cars.
Yes, I would like to see more stuff like that too. I'm pretty sure there is more out there, but yeah, I grabbed 2 different boxes here because they're both relevant to what we're talking about. There's this one, which is the 4D sports driving version. This is Stunts 4D or Stunts, and that's the, if I can get it a bit close to the camera, I can focus on it. There's the tracks. It doesn't show like one of the best features, which is the track builder we were just talking about. Like,
it's
not visible, but yeah, you can see they've launched a car here as well, and they've got a couple of shots of the car launch. There's like a smoke effect there. I can't quite tell. That's a smoke effect, right? Or a crashing effect? I'm not really sure.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong camera here.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hold it in the same place because I've got 2 cameras. But
that's the like crash, smoke, explosion.
Yeah. So this is the Stunts 4D. That's the inner box with the outer sleeve and stuff. I don't remember what's in the box, but I'll remain out of focus while I grab it and have a look. There's the manual for stunts. Sports 4D driving. Couple of floppy disks, different sizes, because you needed the different sized floppy disks if you.
Oh, deluxe.
Yeah, very good. Like a lot of games didn't.
We usually got one size of discs, and like send us $10 and we'll give you the other discs.
Yeah, send this envelope and $5 and we'll post the other size back to you. Yeah, and I think sometimes they would actually say like, send us the original discs back. You're only allowed to have one copy of the game, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be like, send back the 5.25 inch and we'll send you the 3.5 inch. This is the other game that I grabbed, which is relevant. This is the
Stunt Driver,
a competitor to that, and it's very, very much the same sort of game. This has got like loop-de-loops and all of that.
Stunt Driver was different in that really particular way, that you didn't have a lot of options, because I think it was just the one Mustang, right? One Shelby Mustang.
I will look in the manual. I think there are multiple cars, but you might be right.
There might have been a second car, but it didn't have the kind of variety of like.
No, yeah, I think 40 had more options. That's true.
Yeah. Also, Stunt Driver was one of the earlier. Stunt Driver was one of the earlier compatibility issue games that I had.
Right. Big Al here. Howdy, folks. Big Al here. Page 9 of the driver's handbook. Speaking of, here's the driver's handbook.
I remember that. Let
me see, because I believe this has like illustrations of the cars, if I'm remembering the right manual. Techie stuff? No.
For whatever reason,
I think
I always had trouble. I always had trouble getting Stunt Driver to run properly. It was just a really finicky game.
It also really suffers like simulation problems. So if you're running it on DOSBox, you really do have to tune it into like the exact frequency that you want it to run at and stuff. Yeah. It's not the easiest.
DOSBox. I mentioned this before, but DOSBox has some really weird behavior with like fine-tuned timing on certain stuff.
Yeah.
Like Heroes Quest. So I was playing that like
the other day.
Heroes Quest. So you want to be a hero?
Oh, sorry, no. I was playing Hero Quest.
Hero Quest is different.
It's a different game.
So Hero, and I specify because it's the 16 color EGA version, and not the VGA remake, which is titled Quest for Glory.
Yes,
but Heroes Quest. So you want to be a hero has major timing problems in DOSBox that make it way harder, way more difficult.
I am sure that is the version that I did play when I streamed it as well. And I haven't played Quest for Glory 2 yet either. I've only played the first Quest for Glory. I loved it. I will play the rest.
I don't think the second one has problems like that. The issue is that I believe the way it works is enemies are sped up by cycle count, but your attacks are not.
Oh, that might explain why I had so much trouble with the combat. I was like, why is the combat so hard?
And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on hardware, even ridiculously too fast hardware.
Really?
So like,
this is only in DOSBox.
On that Pentium 2, I don't have to slow it down at all.
Huh.
I can just use the in-game speed adjustment.
That is fascinating.
Yep.
Too bad they don't develop DOSBox anymore.
I know.
Little tongue-in-cheek, but like, yeah, when was the last major release?
21?
Yeah.
But it was just like a minor bug fix.
I wouldn't call that a major.
Something that was getting released on GOG.
I think the major release was like a decade ago. It feels like it.
7.4, right?
Yeah. Well, 7.3 to 7.4, I can't remember, but I don't remember there being a huge difference.
That wasn't a big difference.
Mm.
And then I think 074 got what, like 3 sub-releases with bug fixes? So
I think PCM might be a good candidate for like, oh, I will try and get Quest for Glory 1 to work well then.
Yeah, it's probably a better choice, but it's also like it's a lot more effort to set up, and it's a lot more effort to like interact with.
And Doom Noob is asking in the chat, what about DOSBox X? Does it have the same issue?
I don't know. I haven't tested it personally, but as far as I understand it, the emulation core of DOSBox X is the same as DOSBox. So I would my expectation is that it would be the same.
I see. Yeah.
Because
there's like ECE and whatever else. How many major is ECE? They've stopped, right? They stopped ECE.
Oh, I don't know.
I think they did.
Here's the thing. I don't have DOSBox reinstalled on my PC after I had to reformat back in March.
And you haven't felt the need?
Because I don't use it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I don't use it, right?
Yeah.
It's like I
what you currently use is the real PC or the Mister? Is that what you're saying?
I never used the Mister. AO486 is not a good core on Mister.
Needs more work.
It's just a port to FPGA of Box, so you might as well just run Box because you'll have better support, newer stuff, and you don't have to worry about the whole like video chain and stuff. But I spent a lot of time tuning this specific PC up to like run almost everything.
Yeah. Which is pretty hard to do for those who don't know. Tuning one PC to do like games from 86 all the way through to like 99 is a pretty broad range.
There is a combination of factors that is really helpful, which is QEMM for memory management and a utility named Slowdown, who I can't remember who the author is or where I got it, but I have it.
Right.
So,
as far as you know, it's legitimate to have it.
So, Slowdown is freeware. Slowdown is freeware, but I think it's quarter deck. For the Q and QEMM.
Okay.
Cuss Dragon Fast. So what Slowdown does is it does two things primarily. It does selective cache disable.
Oh.
And it does stepping modification. And it does so in a way that is the most that does the best job of preserving the timing of the system so that you can run stuff at specific speeds without like weird stuff like super long disk accesses or like usually things like fade in and fade out taking 5 times longer than they should.
Right.
So that everything runs kind of at the same the correct speed. MoSlow is an example of MoSlow adds like wait cycles in, which means that it does have a lot of those problems.
Yeah, and it's scheduled as well, right? Or something like that. Like it's irresident, execute state resident, something interrupts. I don't really remember.
I'm unsure of the exact stuff that goes on. But the thing about Slowdown is incompatible with HiMem as a memory manager because HiMem takes control of some of the interrupts that Slowdown needs to do the selective cache disable.
Oh, okay.
While QEMM does not.
So with a combination of those tools, you can achieve what you need for most cases?
from this particular system, yes.
Yeah.
And there's still some stuff that's like edge case troublesome, like Tyrion. I can't run Tyrion at the best possible speed with MIDI music active.
Oh no.
Because Tyrion's MIDI driver.
Gee, what a loss.
I know how you love Tyrion.
Yeah, it's terrible. Too bad. Tyrion. Too bad you can't play it, huh? Oh well.
Well, you can just stick the Raptor Call of the Shadows and shoot everything 800 billion times.
Raptor's a freaking awesome game. Raptor, oh man. Anyway.
Raptor's an awesome game after you get to like stage 3.
Yeah.
You have enough money to buy good weapons.
Yeah, and actually the game gets a little bit more playable there too, because you can buy the weapons that you need to actually do good.
Yeah, it's just you have to slog through 3 levels of like
it's not one of those games with the inverted like difficulty curve where it's supposed to look like this, but for some reason in this game it looks more like that. Like, yeah.
Raptor irks me because it plays like an Amiga shooter for the first 3 levels, and then it plays like a DOS shooter.
Right. Yeah.
That's my only problem with it, is the like first 3 levels of an Amiga game stuck on there. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry, you were talking about MIDI on Tyrion.
Yeah, so Tyrion's MIDI driver has issues if the PC is running too fast. Now, with like a Pentium 100-ish, you'd be fine. The game would run good, and the MIDI driver would still work. But if you're slowing down a 300 megahertz Pentium 2, the like overlap where both of those things work doesn't exist.
Right.
So you have to slow it down until the game underperforms slightly for MIDI to work.
Oh, okay. That sucks.
It's one of those edge cases where it's like
you might as well just have like the Tyrion computer over here and then the regular computer there.
Well, you know what's funny too is, and I didn't expect this. I mean, having tried to play through it, I now expect it. Hexen has a broken MIDI driver in almost exactly the same way.
Hexen, the game that is based on the Doom engine. So the question is,
Doom and Heretic do not have that problem.
Okay. So Heretic and Doom. That's crazy. So a later version, did they just decide to rip out the MIDI and break it?
As far as I can tell, by the time Hexen was being worked on, nobody at Raven knew what the hell they were doing with MIDI. Because like the MIDI music itself sounds like a mistake half the time. Like you go into an area and all of a sudden you'll get like dong 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 on a piano and it's like, doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Or like I think one area was still like there was like an area where it was just like a slide whistle or something, and I was like,
he just walked into a room, he's like, woo. That's it.
And it was so out of place.
Yeah.
By the time I got to like the end of the second hub, that I was like, I'm gonna do the bird tweets and gunshots from Castlevania and swap out patches,
right?
Because it's funnier.
Yeah.
Like
that's good.
If it's gonna sound like they messed up anyway, then why not make it a funny mess up instead of just one that was like.
I just had to mute myself for a cough. Sorry. Yeah. Wow. That's wild. So this running real hardware for DOS games, though, for the most part, it's all running from that one machine. That's impressive.
Pretty much.
Did have a nice question rolling in from Rachel Retro. If you want to go ahead and talk about that, I can read it out for you. Rachel Retro asks, "Hey Duke, long-time watcher, multiple-time question asker. What's one big piece of advice you give towards aspiring retro streamers? I almost said that wrong. Anything you wish you'd known before getting into this whole thing? That's a good question.
So,
two good questions.
The first part of that, my biggest piece of advice is don't listen to people who try to gatekeep.
That's good
advice.
Use
emulators. Play a weird version of the game. Do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever you're excited about. If someone says the game isn't good, say, I don't care.
If you're having fun, play it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good advice. If you're having fun, play it. And it's a big thing, right? Because a lot of people will be like, oh, you're playing an emulator? Or they'll be like, why aren't you playing this version? Or why aren't you doing this? Or why aren't you doing that? Right? And you don't have to listen. You don't have to care. You can
play it and get an Andy moment. That's right, Stickster. Yeah.
But that's
part one.
My biggest piece of advice is don't worry about it. Have fun.
Right? Good advice. Very good.
Play the stuff that you're gonna enjoy doing. And like, I think about this from time to time, right? When I think about a game that I want to play, that I'm excited to play, or planning to play, or something like that, I do it because I'm excited about it, and it's only ever the smallest consideration. Are people going to watch this? Are other people going to enjoy my playing this? Because a lot of times I don't care.
Well, and a lot of times the answer is just, if I'm enjoying it, yes, they are going to enjoy it too. Because like they might not like I don't know, they might not like Doom, but I like Doom. So I'm playing Doom and enjoying it and talking about how I enjoy it. They're probably going to like, oh, I never really saw it that way before. That's interesting. Okay, and like they're going to enjoy it too. So
and
Doom was a bad choice of words there. I shouldn't have said Doom. I should have said some other game, but it was the only thing that could come to mind.
Well, Doom is you'd be surprised. Some streamers look at Doom as kind of a viewer poison, because when they stream Doom, their viewership goes down.
Right.
Because Doom was for a while very overexposed.
A lot of people do stream Doom. Like, I don't think worrying about overexposure is a problem though. If you're a new streamer and you want to play a game you're excited about, that goes back to advice number one. Do the thing you enjoy.
In terms of things that I wish I knew going into streaming and going into retro streaming specifically, that's a tougher one, I think, because I enjoy learning, right? And I've learned a ton in doing retro streaming, and I can't think of something where there's been like, no, you know what?
I got something. Got it?
I got something.
All right.
Talk to an accountant. Ooh. Learn how to do your taxes for streaming the right way so that you can claim streaming expenses as business expenses and not as direct deductions out of personal income.
It's good advice.
That's what I would, because honestly, if I knew that, I probably could have saved myself about $8,000 in taxes.
Wow.
Now, that applies specifically to North America, to the United States. It might apply to other areas, but the way it worked here was $8,000 over 2 years. The way it worked here was usually you have like, the government is like, here's your allowance of stuff like we expect you're probably going to claim.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, $12,000 or something. So me, Duke specifically, the person, it's I get a credit of $12,000 against my revenue. if you itemize your expenses, you can sometimes get a little bit more than that because you bought a car or a house or whatever, right? However, if you make a little bit of money doing something and it's a business to you, and that business has expenses that are tied inextricably to that business, such as I don't play video games offline almost ever. There are very few video games that I play offline that
60 hours in Starfield.
It tells you something about Starfield, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a very attractive game for me to continue playing it after having done it for the stream. But like, if I play a game offline, I'm usually playing the game offline for the purposes of investigating if it's good content, for seeing if it's something that is, that's going to give me insight into something I want to talk about on stream, for all of these different purposes. But the end goal of all of that is this is something that supports my stream. And it's something that has served me well, because anything I spend on any of this, flashcards, cables, hardware, capture hardware, switchers, MIDI stuff, all of that is business expenses, because I don't use it for anything else. I'm not sitting here playing I'm not playing through Battle of Olympus on the NES in my spare time, because I'm just, you know what? I'll just hit go live and play it on stream.
That's right.
Why not, right?
It's a waste of good content if you're playing it offline.
Right. And because I have that mentality, and because I have that approach to it, all of the stuff that I do here is business expenses, right? So the way that works for American tax purposes, for my tax purposes, I can't give tax advice. The way it works for me is I get my $12,000 personal allowance, right? And then I have a business, and the business spends this money on games and consoles and flashcards and stuff like that, right? And
they're all deductible expenses now, and
all of that stuff stacks on top of the 12,000 instead of replacing it.
Oh, okay. That's why it works where you are, for you.
That's how it works for me specifically, right? So that's something that, like, again, when I was working a regular job and streaming in the evenings and on the weekends, it worked out to like knocking a giant number off of my taxes.
That's great. It's really good.
The first year that I actually did it, but I streamed for 2 years before doing that.
Yeah.
So figure out your tax if you're just getting into streaming. Streaming can be very valuable even if you're not making a lot of money at it. If you're making money somewhere else and making a little bit of money at streaming, it could be very valuable, and you should speak to an actual accountant to have them guide you through how you can best benefit from that.
I think I agree with that. Like, speaking with a real accountant in Australia as well, I'd say that's a good thing to do. Especially if you already have income and this is like a secondary income, that becomes like something you really want to talk to an actual accountant about, because you can end up giving the government way more money than you should as part of that. So
and there's two parts to it, right? And one of it is, you could, even with like online tax software or whatever that supposedly gives you the best value, there could just be stuff like, for example, when you get your tax form from Twitch in America, it says royalty income. If you put that in as royalty income, it's a totally different type of thing that's also called royalty income.
Okay.
Which is totally unrelated. You don't want to put it there, right? Because it's business income. And royalty income is like when you own a piece of real estate
Oh.
and someone else does mineral drilling there, you get income from them using your land to do some other thing, and that's royalty.
That's crazy, yeah.
But anyway, point is that on the one hand, you can end up spending too much money by giving it to the government. On the other hand, you can be like, I got this. I'll just do this thing because it makes the number go up, and end up in trouble with the government.
Right.
So you want to speak to an accountant where you can say, here's what I do. Here's the stuff that I do. Walk me through what I need to do to make the best of this in terms of paying the least tax, getting the most money back, structuring my business so that it provides the best balance of those things.
Yeah.
An accountant can do that, and it can be like, maybe you spend $500 one time, and then they show you everything you need to do on your taxes from there out.
Yeah, finances and financial advice and stuff like that, that's like very tricky thing to get into. But like the basic advice of like an actual qualified person who knows what they're talking about to help you out, extremely good advice. If I could take a crack at the what's the big piece of advice you give to aspiring retro streamers, I would echo Duke on his just do what you want to do and have fun, and don't let people like gatekeep you out of doing what you want to do. That's very good advice. Another piece of advice I think there is in taking the time, like not feeling like you should take any kind of pressure on like, oh, I have to finish this game now, or I have to finish this game at all, and like enjoying the fact that there can be people there to hang out and chat with, and not being afraid to take a little bit of time away from the game. That's something that I learned over time that is kind of useful to like. Now I don't care if I take longer to finish the game. Sometimes people come in and complain like, oh, you've been playing this game for 3 months. Like, yeah, I haven't really. I've been talking a lot. So I think that's something you should not be afraid of. Yeah.
Nope, that thought's gone. Never mind.
Sorry, I talked too much.
No, it's okay. There was something I wanted to add on to that, and then I started thinking about flashcards again.
Nice. Yeah, the know before you get started thing that's a hard one. I don't know. I'm not sure. I would say the financial one's actually really clever approach that, because that's something that I wish I knew before I started. Is like, oh, I should talk to somebody. And the thing is, when you're starting out, it's just a hobby. Like, you're not setting. I don't think many people set out streaming retro to be like, I'm going to make part of my living off of this or anything like that. So, yeah, it's something you can't really know up front, but it is something worth knowing. Like, at some point, you probably want to talk to somebody. But yeah, advice before you get started. Not really. I mean, you don't have to pretend like you know everything, although that's just that's just generic advice. But it's okay to be uninformed or whatever. Ask questions, learn, seeking to learn. But those things I don't think anybody, like, I don't know. It's not even advice for me. I can't think of anything else. I'm going to leave it at that.
I remembered the thing that I was going to add on to what you said about the starting out stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, and this is something that was specific to me. I intentionally avoided setting a strict schedule for myself when I was first streaming. What I did do, and this is a consequence of, like, I told the story before of how, like, Macaw hosted me with this giant group of people.
Right.
And what that did is that set me up to get the viewership requirement of affiliate.
Right
out of the gate. But I didn't have enough stream time, and I didn't have enough stream days to do it. So what I did was I just made sure that I was streaming enough, but not specifically when. So it was like, okay, I'm going to stream 3 times each week, and I'm going to stream for 4 hours each time I stream. I'll do one day on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and then like whatever evenings I
That makes
end
sense.
up doing, right?
Yeah.
And so by setting a goal of a total amount, I felt a lot less pressure to like, oh, it's almost time to stream and I haven't made dinner yet. No, oh God. Right. And if I could turn up a stream and stream for 2 hours only, I'd do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't worry about, oh, is it gonna affect my numbers? Is the algorithm gonna hate me? Because it doesn't, right? It doesn't matter. What does matter is like, are you communicative with your community? Do you let people know when you are streaming?
Yeah.
Do you have a way to communicate with people that oh, I was planning on streaming tonight, but I can't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that could be, Blue Sky app or a Blue Sky account or a Mastodon account. It could be a Discord server. It could be just DMing the 5 people who actually care about your stream.
A
right?
website RSS feed.
Could be, yeah.
Whatever you got, yeah.
but as long as you have that channel of communication to say like, hey, here's what I was planning, or like, hey, I'm streaming tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
I mean, that's some good advice. I have some counter advice to that, but I wouldn't say it's bad. Like, both directions work. I think having a schedule is, if you are an aspiring streamer and you want to let people know that you are streaming and like they know when they can see you, having a schedule is actually very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I agree with that, right? I think it's a balance. It's a balance that's it's a balance that is going to be a little bit different for each person, right? And you're kind of shifting between more stress but a better chance of success with a specific schedule, and more freedom, but maybe your individual numbers are going to be lower because people don't know exactly when to expect your stream.
Yeah. But feeling comfortable with varying your stream times, especially early on, will help you find times that work better for you, as in like, oh, this is an easier time for me to stream. Like, maybe it's counterintuitive for you. And also, it helps you find an audience as well. It helps you like discover like where people are actually going to come and hang out and watch the kind of games that you want to stream. And it takes a while to build a rapport with people so they know what's up. Yeah.
Oh man, I get all these viewers from France when I stream ST games during their evenings.
Bonjour, everybody. Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing.
The ST was the Amiga of France.
I mean, look, the ST is an amazing machine, though. Let's not deny it.
I'm not. French ST games are fucking wild.
Yeah.
Like, isn't Draken?
Yes.
A French ST game?
Yeah, all of those Infogrames games are French.
Yeah.
So Alone in the Dark, Draken, Continuum, or also known as Brain something, I want to say. Alpha Waves? Alpha Waves? I think it's called Alpha Waves.
Alpha Brain.
I forget. It's Alpha Waves. There you go. I got there eventually, Kinnikos. I just had to remember, like, going through all these variations on the title. Yeah, my copy's called Continuum. It's sold by Data East. And I learned from you, actually, Duke.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
About the connection. Draconian Saga. Is it called Draconian Saga?
It's
I can get the flyer, but
what? It's an imprint, I think, is
the
term.
It's like a disjointed 3 games that are like, now they're in the same universe because the publisher said so, basically.
Yeah. Cult, Temple of the Psy-Mutant Priestess.
Yep.
Draken, and Full Metal Planet, I think.
Full Metal Planet is the third one, yep. I have Cult and I have Draken. I haven't got Full Metal Planet yet, but I The Cult is for ST, Draken's for DOS, so I guess I'll try and get an Amiga for the third one.
I have a copy of MS-DOS Draken, the EGA only version.
Oh, nice.
The like weird EGA ad-lib version. That
Mine's got a figurine in it. A little pewter figurine.
Oh yeah, I think you showed me that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wild.
I was like, what?
Mine didn't have that. I got mine for like $5 from Radio Shack in the bargain bin.
Oh, that's awesome though. I did not get that experience. I bought mine on eBay, I think.
But it had like 3 price stickers over top of each other because nobody was buying Draken.
Yeah. Draken is such a weird like example of a game. Like
it's
yeah.
Draken, to me, Draken is this like failed evolutionary branch that RPGs could have taken.
Yeah, yeah.
That would have been so cool if they refined the formula for it. And to a certain extent, I think Betrayal at Krondor reminds me a little bit of that.
I was going to say
despite having the despite having the turn-based combat.
And it comes back to me, I think you could draw a dotted line from there to Dragon Age series, where you do end up with like a party of people running around a landscape doing some like similar. I mean, it's a dotted line. It's definitely not connected, but there's something like I could imagine it diverting in that direction somehow. Where I don't put Dragon Age and like Elder Scrolls series in the same vein of RPG either. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it's. The interesting thing to me about Draken is that, like, Draken, it's almost an adventure game. And, like, the RPG elements of it are almost non-existent when you're playing through the story. But then there's, like, these hard stops where it's like, you must be this strong to continue. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go outside to the easy enemy area, turn on combat mode, and just leave the computer running for 10 days because I'm invincible to these enemies. I saw Zetsubera doing it in the DOS version.
Oh, wow.
He just had it on hyper speed, and he was playing a different game, and he had a picture-in-picture.
I'm just gonna play like NES. Like whatever, or something over here while this is running in the background.
I think he was playing like Killer 7 or something.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's this little picture-in-picture of Draken running at like hyper speed.
That's actually
the characters
very good.
Zooming around.
That's very, very good. I love that. That's a great strategy.
I'm sitting there watching it, and it's like it was I'm like, okay, you're grinding, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, so you just leave your characters there and they kill the stuff. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I get it.
It's a very good idea.
You went to the area where it's not dangerous because your characters are strong enough to not take damage at all from these monsters. Because he got a little bit of power, and then he went back to the like starting zone and
just let the game play itself until he's gained enough levels. I mean, it's a very good strategy. There's been a few occasions where I've had games, like something's happening in the background, and I'll go and like load up a quick game of like something else to... It's not very often that you get the opportunity to do something like that.
You know, it's funny. I was playing Contra on NES.
Yeah, that is funny. That's hilarious.
I was like, okay, so when you get to the waterfall, you stand here, and you turn your auto fire on, and you tape the button down.
High score.
And then when you come back, you've got like 15 lives.
Oh, nice. Does Contra 2 have a high score at all, or is it just a lives for it?
This particular, because Contra 1 on NES, you can't see your score until you game over.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, but you get extra lives every like 15,000 points or something. but there's one spot where you can be completely safe, and there's like 800 point rocks that fall down this waterfall,
and
you can just line up where you can kill 2 of them in their like trajectories,
right,
but they'll never hit you, and so you just
that's
leave
it.
it there, and you'll gain a bunch of lives, and then it makes completing the game much easier because you always just like respawn in place. If you lose a life, you have to go back if you continue.
Yeah,
So
not exactly a speed run, but definitely make the game easier.
yep.
Nice, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it's funny because it's funny because someone was asking me, they're like, "Hey, how do I beat Contra?" And I was like, "Here's what you do: you cheat."
Is it cheating? It's completely within the system of the game.
It's not really cheating. It's not really cheating. I mean, I guess taping the auto fire down is kind of cheating.
I guess so.
Right. But you could just sit there and tap the button for a long time if you wanted.
Mm-hmm. How long since our last break? Has it been over an hour?
I think it's been...
I lost track. It was around 10 o'clock, I thought. But it hasn't been 2 hours, has it?
I want to say we started at 2. My time.
Mm-hmm.
We took our first break at 4. We took another break roughly at 6, and now it's 8.
Okay, so it is time for another little break then.
Roughly, but we can keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, I just realized the time. We've been talking, and I was just like, oh, wait a second, is that the time? When was the last break?
We can take a break when it's convenient and like we feel we need it.
Yeah, I mean, we've cleared the queue of viewer questions. Viewers, by the way, if you do want to put a live question in, you can use the Ask a Question redemption, channel point redemption for asking questions. And we'll happily bring them into the conversation as we can. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we just we've had a really good little conversation there. I think it would be cool to talk about like some other topics as well. But if you've got some subjects you would like to bring up, Duke, after the break,
have I told you about my latest Sunday game project that I've started?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so there's a game on Apple II and Commodore 64 called Centauri Alliance. It's
the
Bard's Tale dude.
Oh,
Cranford.
okay.
It's a sci-fi RPG. Now, it has a feature that I think is really funny. It allows you to import characters from Wizardry 1 through 3, Bard's Tale 1 through 3,
okay,
Ultima 3, and Might and Magic 1.
That is pretty cool. That's a cool feature.
I've previously on stream completed Wizardry 1 and Bard's Tale 1, which leaves Ultima 3 and Might and Magic 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing Might and Magic 1 on the Apple, on the 2GS, so that I can complete each of those games and then assemble a party of imported characters from all 4 games. And then maybe, because I think it's 6 characters in a party. That's
this roster looks like it has 8.
Oh, does it have 8?
I'm seeing here Tommy. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It says 8.
Yeah. I see that.
Yeah.
So my goal is going to be to import characters from each game, and then maybe put a couple of. It's got the weirdest combat system. The like hex based.
Yeah, I was just looking at the hex grid there.
Thing. Yeah. Anyway, so if you import, I want to import characters from all 4 of the games, because it has this thing in the manual, like
you mean like I'll take one from Ultima 3, I'll take one from Wizardry 1, sort of. Okay.
Yeah.
Build the dream team out of all the other games.
And so it has this thing in the manual. Let me see if I let me see if I have the passage here, and I can read it.
The Commodore version looks beautiful, by the way. The Apple II version looks great, but the Commodore one looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very good looking game.
Yeah.
So, where does it say this? Transfer. This is used to bring in a character from Bard's Tale 1, 2, or 3, Wizardry 1 through 3, Ultima, or Might and Magic. When transferring characters from another fantasy game, recognize that many magical items and abilities do not correspond directly to the world of Centauri Alliance. In these cases, abilities and powers are both altered and subdued to reflect their proper place in a futuristic universe.
Oh, wow.
Yes, magic still works within limits. Remember that the transferred character is not saved to your roster disk until you remove him. And then there's another passage in the combat section. They talk about transferred items. They say some artifacts are weapons and should be readied in the same manner as one might a firearm. But remember that it might not necessarily look like a firearm. A fiery horn, an item that can be transferred from another game, is an example of this.
In
the game it was not considered a weapon, but in Centauri Alliance, you point it like a laser blaster.
That's great. So there are copies of this on eBay as well for varying prices, starting from around 330 Australian.
Starting from.
Yeah. I mean, that at a quick glance, yeah.
Starting from. Yeah, I don't think this game was made in like large quantity.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very late release for both Apple II and Commodore 64. It was a 1990 release.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So late release, famous name attached, probably a small production
run.
So.
Yeah.
But it is preserved, which is good.
Its scores are pretty low for the era. All the Commodore, I'm seeing Commodore critic scores, and it's like from 70 to 80%.
Which, again, right, like, I don't think people were as excited about Commodore games in 1990 as they were 4 years prior or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably fair as well.
But it's a little clunky. The combat system is kind of hard to understand. I know it's going to take it's going to take work to play and finish because it's a Cranford game, right? So it's going to be a bit obtuse. It's going to be a pretty grindy affair, I reckon.
I'm actually like excited to see what your character's equipment and stats and stuff transfer to. That's really.
I know no one's ever done that. Like there's no documentation of somebody bringing in a full bringing in a full group from the component games that it supports.
It sounds amazing.
I gotta finish Mind Magic 1 first, and then we'll do Ultima 3, and then bring all those characters into Centauri Alliance and have like
the ultimate mixed bag of
there's a ragtag group of idiots.
It's like
pulled out of their
you're gonna have to come up with some headcanon story to connect them all. Like, oh, this is what happened to bring them all into the same universe somehow. Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
I'll write to Richard Garriott and ask him to do it.
Yeah. I think now is probably a good time to take a break, though. If you're okay with that.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm here with Duke Donuts, twitch.tv/Duke Donuts. And if you want to come on back for the next segment, we'll be back in about 10 minutes, something like that. It won't be too long. So, enjoy the music and the starting soon screen. We'll be right back. Bye.